Picture this scenario. What if tomorrow morning a small landlocked country in West Africa woke up to discover they were sitting on the world's largest untapped oil reserve? Not just any oil. Premium crude worth an estimated $300 billion sounds like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster, right? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today with this incredible geopolitical thriller that explores power, corruption, and the deadly game of international politics. Our story begins in the dusty plains of a fictional African nation, where Dr. Amina, a brilliant geologist, makes a discovery that will either save her country or destroy it completely. As her drill pierces the desert floor, black gold erupts like a fountain, and suddenly everyone realizes that this small, overlooked nation has become the most valuable piece of real estate on the planet. But Amina's celebration is short-lived, because she understands something her colleagues don't. This discovery has just painted a massive target on their backs. Within hours of the discovery, the presidential palace receives its first visitor. Victor Durand, CEO of Interglobal Corporation, arrives on his private jet with an offer that sounds too good to refuse. 35% ownership for his company, and they'll handle everything. The infrastructure, the security, the international relations. All the government has to do is sign on the dotted line and watch the money pour in. It's the kind of deal that's made dictators rich and nations poor for generations. But President Ibrahim isn't your typical African leader. This guy sees right through the polished presentation and expensive suits. He recognizes the contract for what it really is: a sophisticated form of economic colonialism wrapped in corporate, legal language. When Durand slides that contract across the mahogany table, Ibrahim's response is ice cold. "Our people will decide their future, not your board of directors." The room goes silent, and Durand's mask of corporate charm slips for just a moment, revealing something much more dangerous underneath. That's when our story takes a turn into espionage territory. Fatima, a young intelligence analyst with serious hacking skills, intercepts encrypted messages flowing between Paris and the capital. The conversations she uncovers are chilling. Foreign powers are already moving pieces on the chessboard, contacting military officers and discussing regime change scenarios. This isn't just business anymore. This is warfare conducted through bank transfers and whispered promises in dark corners. The corporate vultures aren't the only players in this deadly game. Within days, delegations from China and India arrive with their own proposals. Unlike the Western corporations demanding majority control, these Eastern powers offer something different: genuine partnerships with technology transfers and respect for national ownership. It's a 21st century version of the Great Game, played out in conference rooms instead of battlefields, with oil reserves instead of trade routes as the prize. Colonel Diarra, the president's trusted military advisor, finds himself at the center of a moral crisis that could tear the nation apart. A briefcase containing $20 million sits on his desk, delivered by men who speak in corporate euphemisms but carry themselves like intelligence operatives. The message is simple: take control of the palace by Friday, install a more business-friendly government, and enjoy a very comfortable retirement. It's the kind of offer that's toppled governments across Africa for decades. Meanwhile, President Ibrahim makes a calculated gamble that sends shockwaves through Western capitals. In a live television address that reaches millions across the continent, he declares that his nation's oil belongs to its people, not to foreign shareholders. The streets erupt in celebration as crowds chant, "Our oil, our future." But in boardrooms, from London to New York, emergency meetings are being called and contingency plans are being activated. The coup attempt, when it finally comes, unfolds like something from a military thriller. Colonel Diarra's forces storm the presidential palace under cover of darkness, expecting to find a terrified leader ready to negotiate. Instead, they discover empty corridors and a trap that's been months in the making. Ibrahim's voice echoes through loudspeakers as loyal forces surround the rebels. You have betrayed your own people for foreign gold. Surrender now, and history might show you mercy. But the real masterstroke comes from Fatima's cyber warfare unit. As rebel forces realize they've been outmaneuvered, she broadcasts their treacherous communications to the entire nation. Citizens watch in real time, as their own military officers discuss selling out their country for corporate cash. The psychological impact is devastating. Within hours, the coup collapses not through violence, but through the power of exposed truth. The international response to these events reveals just how high the stakes really are. French diplomats work overtime as their African partnerships crumble. American senators debate economic sanctions that could backfire spectacularly. Chinese and Russian advisors quietly establish new embassies and sign lucrative development deals. The global balance of power is shifting, and a small African nation has become the fulcrum around which superpowers pivot. At the United Nations, Ibrahim delivers a speech that electrifies the developing world. His condemnation of economic neocolonialism resonates with leaders who've watched their own country's resources flow to foreign corporations while their people remain in poverty. African delegations stand in thunderous applause as he declares, "We are not your pawns in some grand chess game. We are sovereign nations with the right to control our own destiny." The construction of the nation's first domestically owned oil refinery becomes a symbol of something larger than economic independence. Young engineers work alongside international partners who respect their expertise rather than exploit their resources. Children gather at the construction site, asking workers if this prosperity will last forever. The answer reflects the central tension of our story. If we stay vigilant, if we never forget the price of freedom. But our thriller wouldn't be complete without acknowledging that this victory comes with its own dangers. In corporate headquarters around the world, new strategies are being developed. Maps of neighboring countries are being studied, and confidential files are being opened on uranium deposits, diamond mines, and rare earth elements. The game doesn't end with one nation's success. It simply moves to the next target. The genius of this story lies in how it explores the modern reality of resource politics without pointing fingers at any specific actors. Every character represents archetypal forces that exist in our world. The exploitative corporation, the principled leader, the conflicted military officer, the tech-savvy activist, and the ordinary citizens caught between competing visions of their future. What makes this narrative so compelling is how it captures the complexity of modern African politics. This isn't a simple story of good versus evil, but rather an exploration of how nations navigate between competing global powers while trying to maintain their sovereignty. The oil discovery serves as a catalyst that accelerates existing tensions and forces every character to reveal their true priorities. The technological aspects of our story reflect how modern conflicts are fought as much in cyberspace as in physical territory. Fatima's hacking skills represent a new generation of African leaders who understand that information warfare is just as important as conventional military strategy. Her ability to expose corruption and rally public opinion demonstrates how digital tools can serve national independence rather than corporate control. The economic themes running through this thriller highlight the ongoing debate about how developing nations can benefit from their natural resources without falling into the resource curse that has plagued so many countries. Ibrahim's insistence on domestic ownership and technology transfer represents an alternative model that prioritizes long-term development over short-term profits. Our story's ending deliberately avoids the typical Hollywood resolution where all problems are solved and everyone lives happily ever after. Instead, it acknowledges that achieving independence is just the beginning of a longer struggle to maintain it. The final scene with corporate executives studying maps of other countries serves as a reminder that these battles are ongoing and that victory in one location doesn't end the larger conflict. The international intrigue woven throughout this narrative reflects the real complexity of modern geopolitics, where economic influence often matters more than military power. The competing offers from different global powers illustrate how smaller nations can leverage these rivalries to their advantage, but only if they have leaders smart enough to navigate the treacherous waters of international politics. What elevates this from a simple adventure story to a sophisticated political thriller is its exploration of how ordinary people respond to extraordinary circumstances. The crowds celebrating in the streets, the engineers building the refinery, the children asking about their future. These characters ground the high-stakes political maneuvering in human reality. The story's structure, moving from discovery through crisis to resolution, mirrors the classic thriller format while incorporating uniquely African perspectives on sovereignty, development, and international relations. It's a narrative that entertains while educating, that thrills while inspiring deeper thought about the force